are now beginning their 6th day of captivity inside the U.S. Embassy in Tehran.
Because a nuclear Iran is a threat to our national...
We want to be friends with America. We want to be accepted as part of the family. The nuclear family.
Officials will continue their search for some way to negotiate the hostages' freedom.
To make that statement that it wants to wipe another country in its neighborhood off the map.
Strongest sanctions against Iran in history, and it is crippling their economy.
30 years, Iran has baffled and defeated Western leaders.
The responsibility is fully my own.
Power to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. Everything in my power.
Hello, I'm Josh, and welcome back to this IRUS podcast series. Today's topic is the Tehran hostage crisis, which occurred on the 4th of November 1979. I'm joined today by my partner, Lowri Ribbons.
Hey.
And of course, with Ignorant Jon.
Pleasure to be here, thank you.
Yes, welcome back. We're coming to you again from Southampton University. On our last episode, John was with Sarah and Izzy covering the actual events of the crisis, whereas today we will focus on what many think to be the cause of the hostage crisis. Indeed, a myth has developed that suggests an incident back in 1953 was the root cause of the crisis.
Wait, what?
Sorry?
What happened back in 1953 surely did cause the hostage crisis?
Ignorant Jon, I don't think you're on the right line.
Let me explain, okay?
Alright then, John, why don't you enlighten us?
Well, you see, this hostage crisis in 1979 can be linked to 1953.
Well, what happened back in 53?
Well, a man called Mohammad Mossadegh was Prime Minister in Iran, but those ever-domineering Western leaders couldn't stand to see him continue his rule.
Right, and why is that?
It's because Britain was making millions off Iranian oil with the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, and America wanted in on this resource.
Well, that's fantastic, but how does this tie into Mossadegh?
Mossadegh wanted oil nationalisation when he was democratically elected Prime Minister in 1951. This really upset the Westers, and they thought, hey, let's just go over there, kick Mossadegh out and get our hands on some oil, and that's exactly what they did on the 19th of August 1953. The CIA and the MI6 engineered a coup, codenamed Operation Ajax, and Mossadegh was booted out of power, and the exiled Shah was restored to power.
Of course, so how do you suggest that this has anything to do with the hostage crisis?
Well, by 1979 the Shah was deeply unpopular thanks to cases of governmental violence against the population, and he was forced into exile in January. The following month, the Islamic leader, the Ayatollah Khomeini, returned to Iran as the leading figurehead in the country.
But the hostage crisis wasn't until...
Let me finish. In October, the Shah goes to America for medical treatment. Right away, Iranians feared another coup was about to happen, with the backing of America. 1 month later, they stormed the embassy because they felt that's where the coup was going to be planned. And there you have it. The 1953 coup lived long in the people's memory, and they felt it was going to happen again in 1979. Hence, they stormed the embassy. Simple.
Well, that's where you're wrong, John. This is a clear example of the myth that many people believe to be true when it comes to the hostage crisis.
Myth?
Firstly, during Mossadegh's rule, he was despised by Islamic clerics such as the Ayatollah Kashani, who himself became an icon on the Islamic Revolution in 1979.
So the Islamic leaders like Khomeini didn't care about Mossadegh's demise?
No. In fact, they hated his liberal secularism, and they also hated the support that Mossadegh and the left-wing Tudeh party shared.
So how does this relate to the hostage crisis?
Well, that's the point. It doesn't. The regime's hostility towards America cannot simply be traced back to 1953.
But I've read a lot of sources claiming that I'm right and you're wrong.
This is exactly why this myth has continued today. Lots of liberal American writers who are discontent with American relations with the Shah put forward 1953 as the root cause of the hostage crisis, and therefore perpetuated this myth.
Documentaries also show the simplified view, and even though many historians support this myth, their research has often been based on unreliable accounts.
So it seems that the importance of 1953 has been exaggerated over the years.
Exactly. However, following the coup, the National Front and the Tudeh party suffered lots of arrests which deflated their power, and this paved the way for an Islamic movement to rise. So the coup isn't totally useless in explaining Iran's development into an Islamic republic, but its significance is definitely over-exaggerated.
Ah, I see. So is there any other myths I should know about before I embarrass myself again?
Funny you should mention that, Ignorant Jon. Another myth is in regard to the level of CIA involvement.
But they were involved in Mossadegh's downfall, right?
Yes, but little is made of the actions of those within Iran to help bring Mossadegh down. Mossadegh's rule had seen the economy drained of oil money, and as parties such as the Tudeh Party began to grow, so did anti-establishment propaganda and street demonstrations. There was opposition from the Islamic clerics and the purged military officers who led the idea of regime change. These internal dissenters combined with the external ones to bring the Shah down.
So, how involved were these internal dissenters?
Good question. The coup was attempted on the night of the 15th of August, but it failed. In the following days, the internal dissenters remained keen to overthrow Mossadegh. With the help of the CIA, under the lead of Kermit Roosevelt, who supported their actions, Mossadegh was successfully defeated on the 19th of August. Roosevelt claimed credit for the entire episode in his book entitled Counter-Coup, The Struggle for the Control of Iran. So, although the CIA did have a key involvement, some people end up forgetting about the role played by Iranians themselves. So 1953 is shown as a CIA-led mission against the will of the country.
Well, thanks for clearing this up. It seems that when it comes to the causes of the hostage crisis, 1953 is seen as very important when, in fact, it isn't. And along with this myth is the exaggerated efforts of the CIA, as it appears that many Iranians, including the clerical leaders, wanted Mossadegh out.
Exactly. Of course, we can never be sure what was running through the minds of the hostage takers, and maybe some were influenced at what they had heard in 1953. But there certainly should be less attention paid to the significance of 1953 and its image as a purely CIA initiative.
We hope this cleared up some of the myths surrounding the events of 1953 and its alleged impact on the hostage crisis.
Join us on IRUS next time, where we will cover the consequences of the crisis.
I'll be there.
Thanks again to our guest, Ignorant Jon.
Always a pleasure.
And it's goodbye from Josh.
Goodbye.
And goodbye from me. Goodbye.
But tea you can really taste.
Lovely.
Right, now we'd better leave for the airport.
How many big bags have you, sir?
144.